I'm here with Michelle Xai, leader of the Revolution Club in Los Angeles. How are you doing, Michelle?
Good.
All right, so we are just a week and a half out from May 1st, International May Day, and you and the Revolution Club have been going out among the people, different sections of the people, and I think it'd be important for you to tell our viewers some of what you've been learning about to help people see the importance of this, but even more, how to go out and really bring to people what this May 1st represents this year. We're going to get into it through a course of a conversation, but just right off the bat, let's share some of this experience that we've had.
Yeah, we've been getting out to different parts of the city with the call for May 1st. And I just want to share a recent experience getting out to the neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles where we, kind of came up on a scene where the LAPD had just body slammed a 14-year-old to the ground for littering, for throwing a carton of milk on the ground. They had 3 cop cars. They had 2 cops on top of her, had just body slammed her to the ground. They had a helicopter overhead, and people were coming out and were outraged, righteously so, were outraged.
Your outrage is right. Your outrage is right.
And people, and people from the neighborhood were coming out, and somebody said to us, right, that they were sick and tired of this.
We talk mostly about the police around here because they always doing what you just seen. When they come up on us, they draw their guns out.
That they see this on a daily basis and that all they feel that they can do is just yell at these cops and cuss them out. But what we said to him, this is not all we could be doing, right? It's just yelling at the police and cussing them out. Because look, this is all coming from a system, right? A system that has a name, capitalism, imperialism, a system that needs these cops to be doing this on a daily basis, slamming people to the ground, murdering them, in cold blood in the street, harassing them. And this is on top of all of the horror and brutality that this system carries out, not just to Black and brown people, but at the border. 38, migrants dying in a fire, the ripping away of women's right to control their bodies, the destruction of the environment. This system is taking us to the brink of nuclear war. We refuse to accept this system's future. A better world without exploitation and oppression is possible. And we were bringing to them that on May 1st, we're going to get out there as a force, right? Representing for an actual revolution, because that is what we need to get this system's knee off of the necks of the masses of people here and all over the world.
I think that's an important message. I think what we want to do now, when we go out with this, one of the things that you had told me and other people have said that very often people say, okay, I hear you about revolution, but we could never make a revolution in this country because look how few people you are. You need a lot of people to do that. Even you say you've got to have thousands becoming millions. So Bob Avakian was on the RNL show, the Revolution Nothing Less show last fall, and I asked him that question. How do people say this to us? How would you answer that? So let's watch that and then we'll come back and talk some more. Some of the people who have been active going out to organize people with that understanding have raised to us that, but the people say to us, they look out there and they say, you people don't have that many people right now. You're kind of small. And not only that, there's not really the kind of mass resistance we need. And so how are you going to do that? Yeah, what you're talking about sounds good, but it ain't going to happen. What do you say to them?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it looks like something's not going to happen until the night before it does happen. That's one thing that has meaning. It's not just a clever thing to say. This is a time of, when things are being accelerated at an increasing pace, and changes. I mean, who anticipated a year ago even that they would overturn Roe v. Wade? A lot of people are saying, the Supreme Court's bad, but they'll never do that. I've read many articles where people were writing and saying they'll never do that because most people in the country support the right to, at least the right to choose. Well, guess what? They did it. Things of that kind are going to continue to happen at an accelerated pace. And, so yes, it's true. The forces of revolution, in particular the Revcoms who base themselves on the new communism, are very small at this time. That's a fact, and we're not gonna try to bullshit people and pretend something other than what it is, because we base ourselves on a scientific approach to making revolution, which means actually dealing with the actual reality and telling people the truth about the actual reality. I've told this story before. There was a group I don't know if they're still around or not, but back in the 60s, there was this group called PL, Progressive Labor. I mean, you can imagine, they were supposedly a communist group. Imagine what kind of communism, what kind of group supposed to be communist calls itself Progressive Labor? I mean, come on. Anyway.
Wrong on 2 counts.
Leaving that aside, like in the economism to the nth degree, just like burying yourself in the narrow struggles, of today. But anyway, one of their members got up at a rally, and I think it was actually they were being interviewed too. And I think it actually got into the New York Times, where they said, "We have 10,000 members in Harlem." And a bunch of us said, "Man, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't have any fucking 10,000 members in Harlem." And the guy said, "Yeah, I know we don't, but if we say it, maybe we'll get them." Well, that's not the way we're going to approach things with that kind of opportunism. You have to deal with the actual reality. So yes, the forces of revolution are small. Right now, the RevComp forces, basing themselves on the scientific method and approach of the new communism, are small. And, if it were just a matter of like gradually accumulating forces, a few today and a few next week and a few next year, and, with the prospect that maybe in some, never land of 70 years from now, maybe we'd have enough people to make a revolution. Well, yes, then you could say that would never happen. But look, I made this point in 2020 when there was a massive upsurge around the murder of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. I said, look around you. Nobody expected this kind of massive outpouring. And yet, here it came seemingly out of nowhere. But it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of the underlying contradictions. The oppression of black people in particular, and others, Latinos, Native Americans, and the brutal way in which this is daily enforced by murdering pigs. This was the underlying accumulation of contradictions and suffering and anguish and outrage finally burst forth when this was just one too many. It's similar to what's happening in Iran now. There have been many women dragged off the street by the morality police for years and decades. But finally, this one, with this particularly brutal murder of this, yes, that's what it was. The idea that this 22-year-old woman who was perfectly healthy had a heart attack is outrageous, and nobody believes it. Not even the people telling the lie believe it, I would imagine. Okay, but all of a sudden, things have reached another level. Now, I don't know where all this is going to go at this time. The forces of the ruling class there are still very powerful, but this has gone to a level beyond anything previously. And it's, on the one hand, you could say it's just one more thing. Here's one more woman dragged off by the morality police and brutalized, and it results in her death. But it was just one too many in the context of a lot of other things going on. People are suffering economically and so on. It was just one too many. The same thing in 2020. There were millions of people in the street. What was missing then, and we have to fault ourselves in part for this, although we talked about revolution and put out revolution, we didn't really go and struggle with people about, what this really shows is the need to get rid of the whole system. And you are not going to defund the police. Look at what's happened. You got, the great Democratic hero, Joe Biden. The answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund them, fund them, fund them. What'd I say? Fund them. But that was a prevailing line. And so, this thing got led off into a side stream and a side street and didn't go anywhere ultimately, even though it was a, really heroic outpouring of millions of people, which was supported by millions more around the world. Who predicted that a month before? Yes, we've been talking for decades and mobilizing people in struggle against police murder for decades. There's a whole national day of protest against police brutality and criminalization of a generation and repression. That goes back to the mid-90s. But all of a sudden, a bunch of things came together. All right, if the revolutionaries had been working the way we should have been, bringing revolution to that and struggling with people, not just about we need revolution in the abstract, but why these other avenues and lines and roads and programs were not going to lead things where they need to go. The question is, why should anybody put up with this kind of, brutal murder time after time after time after time? Why do the parents and loved ones of these people have to shed these tears and cry this anguish time after time after time? Isn't it long past time to put an end to this completely?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what is going to be required to put an end to this and all the other outrages, which we also need to be bringing sharply to light? The oppression of women, the absolute destruction of the environment, the threat of nuclear war going on, the persecution of the immigrants, and on and on and on. The persecution of gay people and, trans people and so on. In the context of all that, we needed to be saying to people, there's only one solution to this. It's not an easy solution, but it's the only real solution. That's what a scientific approach tells us, because this is rooted in the system and we can show it. And the only way to get rid of all this is to overthrow this system. Now, that probably would not have led to a revolution right then, but it could have led to accumulating many more forces. And then the next time something jumped off, like what happened with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we'd be in a stronger position with more forces and more ability to impact that situation, so long as we were consistently going out there with revolution. And Lenin made the point, leader of the Russian Revolution and important communist theoretician, made the point that in these kind of circumstances, which we're living in now, and it's important to understand, decades of ordinary times get concentrated in not only in years, but in months and weeks. And that's what you saw in 2020 on a certain level, not yet to revolution, but that's what you saw. And that's what's going to be increasingly happening. The question is, are the revolutionaries, small as they are right now? Yes, we're going to be honest about this. We're not going to try to fool people. That's not scientific. That's not principled. But small as they are, can they go out and drive home to people this lesson and show it in a scientifically grounded, understandable way, not talking like, well, you must understand it's the imperialist system that causes all these horrors in the world. And the first thing we need is a proletarian revolution, which first occurred in 1917 after the failure of the Paris Commune in 1871, and was taken to its highest level by the Chinese Cultural Revolution. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? But to go out and in a living way present to people the actual reality of what this is all rooted in, why things are accelerating the way they are, how the ruling class is increasingly in an antagonistic, unresolvable conflict within itself, and how this provides opening for us to actually get rid of all this oppression by scientifically understanding that it's rooted in the very workings of this system, the very dynamics and the very relations of this system, and that we can mobilize and win over the forces, most of all people who are catching the worst hell under this system, which are millions and tens of millions, but also people from other parts of society who hate injustice and who want a better future for humanity and don't want to have nuclear weapons raining down on humanity, don't want the environment to be destroyed. We can win increasing numbers of them over, and it's going to all be very accelerated one way or the other. So we've got to go out with that understanding and give that understanding to the masses of people, like I said, in very basic terms and in everyday language, not in a stilted language that I was just, mocking, to be blunt. But, this is where building up the forces for revolution in a growing way. Today there are small numbers. Tomorrow there are, hundreds verging on thousands. And there are thousands. And when there are thousands, those thousands make millions sit up and take notice. You see thousands of people all together, firmly convinced of the need for revolution, not in some sort of religious sense, but with a scientific foundation in basic terms. You see them on the political stage, influencing the political terrain, how things are shaping up. Millions of people start taking notice. And millions of people who are telling us today, oh, that'll never happen, start thinking a little differently, or at least questioning, well, maybe it could happen. And then, the question is, do you have a leading force, a core leading this, that has the scientific method approach and has an actual strategy and plan for how to build up the forces for revolution, how to work to create the conditions for revolution, carry out what we call the three prepares. Prepare the ground, the political situation. prepare the masses of people, and prepare the vanguard leadership so that you can go all the way with revolution. And people are going to start sitting up and taking notice. Wow, there are people out here and they're very serious about this, and they have a scientific approach which they can explain to me in terms that I can actually understand. And they've got a strategy and a program for how to go about this and how to win when the time comes. Not that they've given us a guarantee, but they have a strategy for how to go about winning, and they've got a whole vision and concrete blueprint for what to do when we do win, namely the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America.
So, Michelle, that was a really solid answer from Bob Avakian on a question that comes up all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to encourage people in the Revolution Clubs to watch this together, to discuss it, and to show it to brand new people, because this is a question that we run into all the time.
Yeah, and May 1st is going to play a big role in going from being small to being bigger on the way to becoming still bigger again, as he described in that. He talked a lot about the importance of bringing to people in everyday, in common language, what is the problem we face, how are these different things relate to each other, the different struggles that you spoke of. And he spoke, too, of the importance of bringing to people that there is a way out of this madness of this system. And you were telling me that this is the fact that we have a way out has given people who've come forward around the club hope. In fact, some people have said the reason I'm sticking with this is because this gives me hope.
Yeah, look, people coming around the Revolution Club don't agree with everything, right? We're constantly getting into these questions. But one thing that we're learning a lot from a lot of new people coming forward is that they are attracted to the fact that there is a whole different way that the world can be. Somebody just straight up saying before meeting you guys, felt like we're all going to die anyways. This is all going to shit. There's nothing we could do about it. And then running into the message that actually we don't have to live this way and a whole different world is possible, right? That they keep coming back, even with all the disagreements, even with all their questions, they keep coming back because they actually want to know, how is that kind of world actually possible?
Yeah, this is no way for people to live. We had a slogan years ago that we still is really worth thinking about. This gives hope to the hopeless. But actually, Bob Avakian's written a whole paper that this provides hope on a scientific basis. This is something people can get deeper in. But right now, this question of there's a way out of this madness, and it's not you. People are being told to look into themselves to seek shelter from the storm, in the sense of self-care and all this stuff. We need people. There's no self-care when you're facing what we're facing right now. We need to actually change what's giving rise to all of this. But in terms of this pole of attraction, the pull towards something better, you also were telling me that there's people responding to the fact that we actually have a constitution for a new society, for a new real socialist republic in North America. It'd be important to share that with people and how important it is to bring that out to the people we're organizing for May 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very concrete. It gives people a really concrete vision of what that society would look like, right? And you contrast that to the ways that people are, to everything you're describing, right? Living in a society where people don't have to be at each other's throats, where you don't have to constantly be competing with somebody that looks just like you, or fighting over a street corner, or, or just thinking that all you can do is just take care of those immediately around you. Because you would have a whole different economy, you would have a whole different system in society that is actually about meeting the needs of the people, right? And actually is about going to work on breaking all those chains. It's radically different, and just that kind of hope that it actually gives people.
So, Michelle, people are going to change a lot in the process of making a revolution, but still, after a revolution's won, not everybody's going to suddenly be angels and all, and there's going to also be all different kinds of things that have forms of oppression that haven't been overcome. Every man's not going to have overcome all his patriarchy, and there's still great differences among the people. But so how is this new society going to enable people to go to work on this?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's really exciting about the vision of that different society is that, for one, it's not a utopia, right? We're part of the difference in actually the problems in trying to rebuild that different society will be put on masses of people, right? And for somebody like myself who was told like, don't expect shit, or you can't understand anything or whatever, and you know, seeing how in that kind of society, being part of actually working to, you know, to change and to rebuild a whole different society is, you know, is really exciting. And just a contrast, like, you know, you look at when people have actually tried rising up against this, right? To the example that Baba Vakian speaks to, right? The gang truce, right? When people actually do rise up against police murder and brutality, and these people that we're told are monsters, are irredeemable monsters, right? These people that have actually tried so hard, right? And have done these gang truths, that the pigs come and just like, you know, set them against each other,
yeah,
right?
And fuck with them.
Yeah, and fuck with them because of the very workings of this system, right? They actually can't resolve this, right? Think about it in a whole different society that, you know, those people and those struggles will be backed up, right? Why? Because the goal of this society is the emancipation of all of humanity, right? We would be enabled through education, through being able to understand the world that we're living in, and actually, you know, and the Constitution and what's laid out in there, right? What kind of society we would be fighting for, and going to work on coming together to do that.
Michelle, I think this is so important, and I can see why when you start opening up this conversation with people who are coming forward to May Day and coming to the Revolution Club, it's really the start of a whole process of really coming to recognize how through this, what Baba Vakian has put into this Constitution that he's authored and into a whole way of knowing and changing the world is really not only attractive, but it involves people grappling over all this stuff, and people who've not been, like you said yourself, not been told that's not your province, that's not something you can do. You just have to toe the line and accept our boot over on your neck. So I just think this is really what you said was very important. It's a beginning, and we're going to be doing more of that on the show. And people who come to May Day and come to the Revolution Club, this is what they're going to experience. People getting into these questions while we're standing up and organizing more people. So just to go back to wrap this up, at the beginning, you made a point. I believe that this is going to be a chance for people. We're going to be gathering forces this May Day. And so I think it'd be important just to go back to what is a basic call for May 1st, and why should you be there?
Well, look, we're on May 1st, we're going to be taking to the streets with these slogans. We refuse to accept this system's future. A better world without oppression and exploitation is possible. No U.S.-NATO war with Russia. Stop U.S. threats against China. No World War III. It's this system, not humanity, that needs to become extinct. Now is the time to get organized for a real revolution. And I think, look, there's so many people right now, like the brother that I was mentioning earlier from South Central, who has just been feeling like very angry around this, right? And think about all the people that feel that way, and on May 1st, bringing all those people together to manifest a force that is saying we are not going to accept the direction in which this system is taking humanity, and that there is a whole different way that the world can be. And we're going to go and we're going to impact many more people that feel that way to bring them into this revolution. That's the process of growing from hundreds to thousands to millions, for the time when we can go all out to bring this whole system down and implement and bring about a whole different society where things will be radically different, right? That's what we're doing on May 1st, and that's what you are going to be part of doing together with other people on May 1st who you've never met, who you would think are, you know, or how in this society you're told you're supposed to be competing against or looking down on or you know, or seeing as your enemy. All of those people coming together around this revolution and putting in this society, you know, when things are going in a really terrible direction, to wrench something positive out of all of that through an actual revolution.
All right, boom, that's it, Michelle. May 1st, come out, be part of this, get into the Revolution Club, write us, and watch the RNL, Revolution Nothing Less show this week, next week, spread it around, and use it as a tool to organize people for May Day 2023. Michelle, thanks for being on the show again. This was great.
Yeah, really glad to be here.